Welcome to Reflection Reel. I'm Jack Lewis, and we're going to talk about the box office in 2023 and what it could mean for Hollywood and films in general, from how the pandemic impacted mainstream films in 2020 to 2022 to the ongoing SAG and WGA strikes. I'll also mention how streaming services play a role in all of this. Now, here's the current scenario. When streaming platforms like Netflix, Disney Plus, and Hulu, for example, were introduced, they completely changed how we consume entertainment. Have you noticed how much streaming platforms have changed the way we watch movies? It's not just about going to the cinemas anymore. We can now watch our favorite movies on demand from the comfort of our own homes. Although the cinemas are not obsolete, the latest figure from IBIS World showed that it is expected to generate a staggering $77.2 billion by the end of 2023. That's only 0.7 more than a year ago, but it's still a good sign for studios everywhere. One way studios are adapting is by a hybrid release, where the film is released in cinemas first, then on streaming platforms several days later, giving people who are enthusiastic about the film a chance to watch it in cinemas just before it hits streaming platforms. The Irishman 2019 is a good example of this. This battle of cinema and streaming is very much a global phenomenon. However, starting with the release of Top Gun Maverick, cinemas have found a new life. This was a massive win for the movie industry, which is now devising strategies to keep its audience engaged for the future. They're also looking to please new markets and are adjusting their programs accordingly. Their main goal is the global stage, particularly where cinemas have had a comeback after the COVID-19 pandemic. The writers' strike in 2007 should give some insights into potential outcomes of the current SAG WGA strikes. In 2007, the Writers Guild of America's strike lasted for 100 days, resulting in American studios and networks facing a content drought. The US turned to its international markets, including English-speaking countries like the UK and Australia, to fulfill its entertainment needs. Australia benefited from this situation. So here is the SAG and WGA strikes. Now for Hollywood, they have a massive problem on their hands. The Screen Actors Guild, also known as the SAG, and the Writers Guild of America, also known as the WGA, are two of the most influential labor unions in the US. They represent the interests of the writers and actors in the movie and television industry. These unions play a pivotal role in ensuring actors and writers on films and TV are compensated, furthermore providing reasonable working conditions and improved rights. This year, both the SAG and WGA have decided to come out on strike. Both unions coming out on strike simultaneously is not unprecedented, but the last time it happened was in January of 1960, with the writers, or WGA, going on strike. Then the actors, or SAG, joined them in the following months. So you can tell it's a big deal. So why have both unions gone on strike? Well, it's to protect the same thing we've mentioned above. Both believe that due to the change caused by the rising streaming platforms, new business models need to be put in place to compensate actors and writers more fairly. Previous methods of calculating the shares of the profits that they receive have run their course, and they want a share of the profits generated from streaming. But the issue goes just beyond the money. The SAG and WGA are also asking for more initiatives, better working conditions, and protection against discrimination and harassment within the industry. Well, first off, this strike would disrupt current projects, which could lead to several projects being delayed, plus a drop of quality in the projects. With all the major actors and writers out on strike, it would become more difficult for studios to deliver projects if the primary writers and actors working on them leave. The union's power and bargaining leverage is going to keep increasing. The longer this strike goes on, the more obvious it will become to all involved parties that Hollywood cannot function without their writers. Now here's the implication for the Australian entertainment industry. A silver lining amid these challenges is the potential for Australian content to flourish globally. When the US broadcasters sought foreign content during the 2007 strike, Australian productions found their way onto the international screens. However, the landscape has shifted considerably since then. Many Australian projects are already designed for the global market, often with foreign financing and partnerships in place. For example, it is expensive to go to the cinemas, especially with friends and/or family. So people have turned to streaming services. However, actors and writers have not been getting their stipulations from DVDs and Blu-rays Blu-ray sales anymore. Stipends have been reduced to only several cents from each view from streaming services. This does not include box office money, checks, or wages. While streaming companies technically pay residuals, both unions and their members say that the amounts and pay timelines leave actors and writers with almost nothing, and those who were once paid for reruns of network shows often get nothing now. Netflix, for example, only charges roughly $15 to $20 per month, and the customer can get access to plenty of content. However, if actors and writers get paid more, that would mean that studios would have to charge more for streaming platforms if this gets reserved. If the consumer doesn't like that and they don't pay for it, this means that there could be an implosion of some kind. It also doesn't help that inflation and streaming companies charging more would anger the customers. So they might stop paying or pay sparingly. So streaming services might have to be charged in a bundle of some kind to justify the increase in prices. Now, looking ahead for disruptions and innovations. Right now, the biggest changes in Hollywood are virtual productions and the introduction of AI in content creation. Virtual production is when directors and film actors use advanced technology to create larger-than-life immersive worlds digitally. It's not only cost-effective, but it's an efficient method of production, means filmmakers can now show worlds and concepts that they would normally not be able to do. It's like having a digital co-writer and a co-director right at your fingertips. Studios find this approach to be much more cost-effective, streamlining the entire creative process. However, with AI taking over some of these roles, it's hard not to wonder what will happen to the people who used to do these things. Now, here's some of the financial insights from IBIS World. Now, you can't talk about cinema without talking about the big guys, right? Take the Walt Disney Company. They have an impressive 17% share of the global market, but or at least filmmaking-wise. But Disney isn't the only big player here. Next up is Warner Bros. With 15.1% of the global movie production market share. And don't forget that Sony Corporate holds a 12.46% market share, or 12.46% market share. Even though all those numbers are easy on the tongue, it's clear that the movie industry is making a ridiculous amount of money. In 2021 alone, they generated $136.2 billion in revenue. Obviously, with a growing population, it is projected that the amount of revenue that cinemas generate will continue to increase each year. It is estimated that by 2026, it will generate $178.5 billion worldwide. Studies show that the increase in demand for content, boosted by the post-pandemic recovery of cinemas, will make sure that this isn't just a projection but a reality. Alright, here's the synergy with previous insights. As we discussed, the financial well-being of this industry is heavily intertwined with how the viewing habits of their audiences change over time. Audiences have shifted to using streaming services, and big-name studios have had to adjust their strategies according to them. What's more is the ongoing strikes pose a massive threat for all current projects and the future of Hollywood at large. The introduction of AI has been welcomed up to this point, but it's unsure how long that will be a thing. But as we've seen before, Hollywood is ready to do whatever it takes to generate the most revenue. And so it all makes sense that they will eventually agree with both the writers and actors. By planning for the future, catering to the needs of the employees, and adjusting to the trend in markets, Hollywood can ensure that cinema will remain a viable source of income for a long time. This labor dispute could reshape the dynamics between artists, writers, and studios. Drawing insights from this video, we can assess how these strikes could innovate business models and drive the need for sustainable revenue streams beyond the traditional structures. And that brings us to the end of this exploration of the financial dynamics of Hollywood, and coming up with new ways to engage audiences that are now using streaming services to meet the needs of their writers and actors. Hollywood has its own work cut out for it, although this situation is still unpredictable, so it's tough to say what is going to happen. But this should give us some insight into these circumstances. Thanks for watching.